Great to see everybody. Looks like we got England, Australia, Canada, US. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I think today should be a transformative day for everybody. I want you to understand psychology completely different than you have before. If you spend a lot of time, like me, learning the academic part of psychology, I'm going to do my best to convince you that that's not all there is. If you don't know who I am Chase Hughes. I did a couple decades in the U.S. military, ran some intelligence operations, and right before I left and retired a few years ago, I was the captain of a sneaky boat that did sneaky stuff. And I was obsessed with interrogation for a very long time, which we're going to talk about. And interrogation is a way to basically talk someone into doing something that might not be in their best interest. And the first time I ever felt this myself was at 1 a.m. I was a little sleep deprived, and I watched an infomercial all the way to the end and wound up a few days later with a slap chop on my front doorstep. And these are one of these things they sell on the infomercial that chops up like celery or carrots and stuff like that. And I've never used it to this day. It's still in the box. And that was a decision that might not be in my best interest, but I felt good about making it. And if somebody would have asked me in that moment, did I make that decision 100% and was I influenced? I'm going to say no. I weighed the facts, I weighed everything, and that was my choice. And we're going to get into what that really means when it comes down to it, and how a person, anybody, 60 to 70% of the population can be talked into committing murder in less than an hour without a single technique being applied. And we're going to talk about some pretty heavy stuff, and we're going to talk about some funny stuff alike. But one thing I want to get out of the way is the initial approach to psychology that we've been programmed to see is the Tylenol approach. So how does academia tests out a drug? They have a new little pill of Tylenol and they say, here's the drug. I'm going to administer this to 500 people and it works in 390 people. That's good. It's kind of just, here's the thing. So we tend to view psychology that way too. This is cognitive behavioral therapy. This is any kind of aversion therapy, any therapy that we think of. And we tend to view that the same. I challenge you to find a psychological study that also factors in the skill level of the person performing the technique. We measure cognitive behavioral therapy based on a person reading from a blank or a piece of paper on a clipboard and seeing how many people it works on, not ever factoring in whether or not the person reading the technique or performing the technique is an absolute moron. And then we measure the results. So skill level never factors into psychology research, which I think is the biggest and most idiotic blunder in academia. That the skill level of the person doing the technique is underestimated at best, if not completely ignored. So that's what we're here for. I want to level up the missing skill level that actually does make the difference. Everybody wants the free coffee script, but I would much rather you be the person who can do it without it. So more and more, the more persuasion I learned, the more I stopped asking myself, what technique should I use? And started asking the question, who would I need to be to make this happen? Who would I need to be to get this confession? Who would I need to be the kind of a person to ask a person to confess to something that's going to put them in jail for 25 years? So that's what changed everything for me. So with that, welcome to the training. I'm going to bring up our PowerPoint here on the screen. With what we're doing today, I'm going to go through some of these concepts, and I just want you to get these concepts because I think that these are the domino. If I can get this one concept to knock over in your mind, then everything else is 10 times easier. So it's kind of a compound effect. And I want these key concepts to be inside of you, not just in a notebook, not on a legal pad on your coffee table, but in your head. I want them to be understood and thoroughly processed by you by the end of the day, hopefully. So, in the end, let's just try to take on these concepts as much as you can. And I want you just to, if it sounds incredulous, I want you to manufacture an "I believe it" button in your head and just push that for today while we're going through this. My journey started when I was around 19 years old. And the person that's here on your screen right now, his name's Craig Weberly, and he was stationed on the USS Cole. But before that, he was my best friend in boot camp. My best friend this is in Great Lakes, Illinois, where we go through our Navy training out there. And he was one of the most authentic people I've ever met. And in a time when boys, especially me, were socially concerned about being open or honest, he would say things like, "I'm really happy that you're my friend." And which even grown men still can't muster the courage to say to each other. So I really admired him a lot, and I tried to soak up a lot of his personality when I could. And in October of 2000, he was killed by a terror attack in Yemen, in the Gulf of Yemen there, and the attack on the USS Cole. And I read the report. If you've ever been in the military or you have a secret security clearance, you know that there's a secret news briefing about news that comes out every morning called the Early Bird. It's kind of a one-page brief. And I pulled the Early Bird off the tray and read through the paper. And the document credited intelligence failures, intelligence operative failures, and all kinds of other stuff that kind of went back to how our intel people were being trained. And in the end here, it turns out that we could have done something. We could have maybe located the guy who orchestrated this stuff. And this is the guy here. He was on the most wanted list. And he was captured in Yemen and literally escaped after 2 days. And then he went missing for 13 years. So I kind of saw it as my life's purpose to figure out the techniques. What would have saved him? What would have made everything better? What would have gotten the people to talk and reveal the intelligence? And this is my first day as a civilian, the first day after I retired. And that is an aerial bomb that actually didn't have explosives in it. It's called a ninja bomb. Google that later. It's badass. It's a bomb with no explosives. It's just got a whole bunch of knives. It's basically shoots out knives. So that was kind of my retirement gift. But what you're looking at here is the problem. We tend to look at influence as a way like this works with most people most of the time. I saw our intelligence training had nothing more than a Dale Carnegie course. Like the influence that our government was teaching was look people in the eye, use their name, make physical contact with them, smile when you talk to someone, make sure the person feels like they're being listened to. And that was about it. And that was great in 1951 for sales training. But the influence and most influence training is a set of best practices to influence most people, sometimes on accident. Because we get to the end of an interrogation, we get to the end of a sale, We get to the end of any social interaction to find out, oh, it just didn't work that time. Now, you can't win them all. We hear all this stuff all the time. We couldn't get a confession out of this guy. He was really hard. Just doesn't work out in our favor every time. So that alone shows us that we're viewing influence as every human being is pretty much the same. And here are the techniques that you need. But everybody's different. So good influence is like a lockpick where we can find our way through a social interaction and figure out where these pins are. Because every pin inside of a lock, if you didn't know that this was a cross section of a lock, is a different size. And that's why keys look like they do. Good persuasion is like a lockpick. Great persuasion can see through the lock to begin with. Is just becomes the key automatically. So this was the problem that I saw and the problem that I spent my life trying to solve. This is where the 6-minute X-ray came out. This is where I got into hypnosis. I became a board certified master hypnotherapist. I went to neurology school. I got certified, multiple certifications in neurology from Harvard University. I did everything I could to learn this from every angle that I could. And at the end here, I realized that this is typically what we're dealing with. If you had to ride on the back of a motorcycle, would you rather the person who's read every book on motorcycle riding or the guy who's been riding for 20 years and never read a book in his life? We would all put all of our trust in the second person. And if we're choosing a doctor or a surgeon, we have a guy who's read all the books and a guy who's done it for 20 years. We would all choose the second guy or woman. And what we're teaching people in most training is knowledge. And what we're lacking is skill. And I think those are very different things. There's a big difference between I know a whole lot about that and I can do that, especially when it comes to interrogation training and persuasion and sales. So being informed does not make you skillful. So what I'd like you to do, what I'm trying to persuade you to do right now is to take this and actually use it. My worst nightmare is for us to finish this course and you to say, that was great. That was fantastic. That was entertaining. I would much rather you hate this and take the skills and actually get some return on your investment. Filling up a notebook will not give you an ROI unless, you just want to have a bunch of full notebooks. So let's talk about what's going on inside of our head. Many theories suggest that our brain evolved in 3 fundamental layers. And keep in mind, this is a model. So there's not 3 brains in your head. The first one is the reptilian brain. And this evolved first. Our spinal cord is part of our brain. Our eyeballs are actually part of brain. So when you're looking at a person's eyes, that's a piece of the human brain sticking out in the open air. So eyeballs all the way down to the tip of your spinal cord are still brain. So that's the reptilian. The mammalian brain, this little green section here, if you're watching or if you're doing dishes and listening to this, it is the middle part. If you stick your fingers in your ears, that's where it is. This mammalian brain is kind of like what's inside your dog's head. It's pretty smart, very emotional, and cannot speak English or any other language for that matter. The neocortex is this guy that sits out on the top. Neocortex is literally a Latin word for new cover. So it's just the new covering that came about. And this is what makes us human. This is what makes us do all kinds of stuff. This is what gives us psychopaths, Mozart, Da Vinci, and Scientology. Who knows? The problem with influence is that the green part right here makes decisions. The blue part takes the credit. This mammalian brain saw the slap chop and said, I need a slap chop. I need to cut up some cucumbers into little rectangles. And the blue part said, yeah, because of this, this, and this. And the blue part of the brain took all the credit. If you went to an electronics store right now and you saw a dude walking out of there with a big flat screen TV and you stopped him and you said, hey, did you buy that because your neighbor just got one that's a little bigger than yours and you saw a Super Bowl commercial a few weeks ago? He's going to say, absolutely not. This one's got a screen that's this size, and it's got this many brightness levels. But that's the blue brain. That's the neocortex taking credit for an emotional decision. So most of our decisions are made in this emotional area of the brain. Now, I don't want you just to think that it's emotions. The reason your heartbeat speeds up when you hear a glass break in the kitchen at 3 a.m. is because of this part of your brain and the reptilian brain working together, not because of the neocortex. So our ancestors passed down a whole bunch of cool stuff for us to survive from. They also passed down the ability for psychogenic trauma. And we are the only creatures on Earth capable of experiencing psychogenic trauma. What this means is when a zebra is drinking some water and a crocodile sinks its teeth into its throat and there's blood spraying out of its arteries all over the place, it's fighting as hard as it can to survive and get out of the jaws of the crocodile. Its cortisol levels go way up. Digestion stops, growing fingernails stops, hair growth stops. All kinds of stuff inside the body that's not essential automatically stops instantaneously. Cortisol shoots through the roof, the heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, all in survival mode. So the zebra can get through it. Humans can have that exact same life-threatening, holy crap, I'm about to die experience in response to public speaking, or in response to thinking about something that happened 10 years ago. Animals don't do that. And if this is an interesting topic for you, I would highly recommend the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, by Dr. Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University. Wonderful guy, wonderful YouTube videos that are also laced with hidden politic messages. So just don't say I didn't warn you. So this is kind of, I want to add this image in here to help you to think about the people that you're talking to. It's one thing to see this on a PowerPoint, but what I'd like you to do is burn this into your mind just for a week, just to change the way that you're seeing people and the way that you're seeing the world. When you're checking out at McDonald's or you're negotiating for a better pay at work, all of these things matter, especially because we can see that there is some stuff going on in there. There's a human, there's a mammal, and a reptile. So I just want this image to be there just so you can start seeing people differently. So if I was just able to convince you to change the way that you're looking at psychology and that you can see it live in real time, you're talking to another person and this image is in your head, then I've done my job. So this is Amy. She's cooking some beef jerky or something here, but I want to introduce you to her because we're going to talk about Amy and we're going to bring up Amy quite a bit. If Amy lived a couple million years ago, maybe a million years ago, she had a hard life. The average group or tribe of human beings back then was about 170 people. And it was pretty tight-knit community. But it was also fraught with risk. There were social risks. If Amy took a social risk and deviated from what everyone else was doing, she could be seen as an outcast. And then that boy that she likes, or that guy that she likes in the other tent, doesn't like her anymore. They don't have sex. They don't make babies. Her DNA stops existing forever on planet Earth. That's pretty dire consequences for Amy. If she didn't follow the tribal leader, if she didn't pay attention to her surroundings when she's walking around in the woods, DNA stops. This is why none of your ancestors died a virgin, and I'm willing to bet money on it. We all made it. We all made it, and we all made it because our ancestors continuously passed down lessons in our DNA. This is the reason a 3-year-old child is afraid of a snake when they don't know what a snake is. This is the reason that when you put a cucumber next to a house cat who's never seen a snake in its life, while it's eating, we've seen those YouTube videos and it scares the crap out of the cat and the cat jumps up. That's the cat's ancestors saying, hey, watch out for long, skinny things on the floor while you're trying to eat because they're going to kill you. And they pass it down just like our ancestors do. So Amy had a pretty rough life, but if she obeyed authority, paid attention to her surroundings, did what she was supposed to do, went along with the crowd, agreed with people most of the time, made friends, she could guarantee her DNA's survival. So a creature has two choices: to either become immortal or to have babies. We haven't mastered the first one yet. So in order for our species to become immortal, we have to possess the ability to pass down information. And that's what we're talking about here. So good persuasion actually works because our ancestors wanted to live. I bought a slap chop because it triggered something in me that made me make an emotional decision based on something that's been passed down to me, whether from my parents while I'm growing up or from my ancestors. So that was our fate. Our fate was in the hands of just a few things. But if we just followed a few things, then we'd be okay and pass down what we've learned to help our kids and kids survive. And that was our fate. So with this, I want you to just to memorize this acronym. We have focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. All really good persuasion works through these 4 channels. Wonderful persuasion works through all of them. But I have focus on here first, not because it's a cool acronym. I actually didn't know it spelled fate until a student pointed it out. But focus is our ability to pay attention to what's going on. So I want you to think of Amy just for a moment here, dragging a giant bag of fish or berries back to the village at the end of the day. She walks the same trail down to the river every day and the same trail back. And she passes a big bush every day. And one day the sun's about to set, so she's getting back to the village. She passes by the bush and a stick snaps behind the bush. Even if her kids were sick, even if her village might be on fire, how much of her focus is worried about the village the moment the stick snaps? 0. So she survived because things in her environment were important to her. And we're going to talk about why that stick is so important to modern day and how you can use the breaking stick principle. But focus was really big. And authority was also big. Not just an authority figure. I need to obey the tribal leader. I need to follow whatever they tell me to do. If the tribal leader turns towards the sun, I'm going to turn towards the sun. If the tribal leader says the sun is God, I will believe that the sun is God as well. Another part of authority is group authority. With 4 or 5 people doing something, we're programmed to do the same. If you want proof of this, you can go on YouTube and type in bell ringing, sit up, stand down, or some paraphrase that as much as you want. But we've seen that experiment. Most of us have seen it where a bell rings and people stand up and then they sit down. And then sooner or later, all the people who are actors are out of the situation and everyone else there is a genuine volunteer. And that's group authority. The reason we do that is because our ancestors needed to live. The reason we are focused on things like sticks breaking is because our ancestors needed to live. So tribe comes naturally right after that. Tribe means I'm going to follow along, I'm going to get along, and I'm not going to make waves. I don't want to stand out too much. And emotion is also very important. So things that cause us a lot of pain or emotion are very important for us to remember. You can literally pass down a psychological trauma in your DNA. So like if your grandmother had her leg cut off by a choo-choo train, you could have an unexplainable fear of trains and nobody can explain it. You can literally pass down that level, that detail specific type of psychological trauma in your DNA, which is pretty unusual. And the emotional stuff is there because we need to live. All of these things are what kept our ancestors alive. And even in your life, this is what happened. The emotion when you touch a hot stove is pretty negative. So we remember that's not going to happen again. I'm going to search for this in the future, and I'm going to be more cautious about this in the future. So there's only 3 factors of influence. If I'm teaching you to influence a person, you're either leveraging electricity, and by electricity, this is what I'm leveraging in you right now. I'm explaining scenarios. I'm talking about a bush. Every single one of you had a different bush in your head and a different trail in your head and a different stick snaps sound. All of you envision something different. So just to get you to imagine something, I obviously have to get you focused, but you're all invested in the course. So I've got the focus first. So now I can drive electricity. So I'm driving electricity in your head, basically flowing on neurons in your head. And if I start talking about how Amy's child is dying and I explain it very vividly, now I'm influencing you on a chemical level. I'm creating emotions, which are making chemicals in your head. So I've gone from electrician to pharmacist. And finally, we have the genetic, and that's where we have the fate model: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Electricity is thoughts, chemical is emotion, and genetic are genetic memorized scripts. So we have these scripts at birth. We're born knowing how to smile, knowing how to frown, knowing how to make a disgust facial expression. We have all that stuff right out of the box, ready to go. These genetic scripts might be: I need to obey the tribal leader. I need to do what other people are doing. I need to follow along with X, Y, and Z. And we're going to get further into triggering genetic scripts here in a bit. So an example that I'd like to illustrate here is this fish here, which is a grouper fish. If you're not familiar, they can get up to about 600 pounds, I think. If you go down to Florida, you can get a big one. And they swim around mostly in rocky areas. So they like to hang around little rock overhangs and little underwater cliffs. And they're big. They're big fish. And he has a friend here in this photograph. So this little friend that the grouper is making a conscious decision not to eat is called a cleaner wasse, W-A-S-S-E. And this little fish has, over the course of millennia, somehow formed a relationship with the grouper fish that says, if you keep your mouth open, I'll swim inside. I'm going to clean out all the nasty stuff from your teeth and get all the debris, the rotting stuff in there that's going to make you sick and going to make you die. and I will clean all that stuff out of there for you. It's a pretty good deal. I won't eat you. You can clean my teeth. It's the same deal we have with our dentist, except we don't say it out loud. So this cleaner wasp, the way that he tells the grouper, I'm going to come in there and do some service. He swims a safe distance away to where the grouper can see him, and he does a special dance in the water. There's a special dance that he does where you can see him moving around, and the grouper sees this little cleaner wasp out there, and he either opens his mouth, or if he's in a mood for a snack, he won't open his mouth and he'll chase the cleaner fish. And the cleaner can get away because he's far enough away to where he can escape. So the grouper opens his mouth, the cleaner wasp swims down and starts cleaning all the teeth and does this wonderful work. He goes all the way into the gills and gets the nasty stuff out of the gills. And cleaner wasps will even eat dead skin around fishing lures that are stuck in there. This was found down in off the coast of Florida. It's really cool. But then we have a bad guy. We have a villain in this story. There's another fish who's called a saber-toothed bloody fish, who kind of resembles the cleaner wasp. He's a little bit bigger, and he's got gigantic, like piranha teeth. And he's hanging around one day, smoking some cigarettes with his friends, up to no good. And he sees this little cleaner wasp do this dance. And he says, I'm gonna try to do that dance, because if I can do that dance, I can eat the grouper, because fish don't have any feeling, especially in mouth and gill area. So they can eat them. So the saber-toothed bloody fish goes up one day and he does the little dance that the cleaner wasp did, and the grouper opens his mouth. The saber-toothed bloody fish swims in there and eats the grouper from the inside out and kills it. So what we're really looking at here is a scenario where we could do, or this saber-toothed fish could do a service and chooses not to do a service to the fish. But he's triggering an evolutionary script. So if I could teach you what that dance was, I could teach you what that is for human beings, because we have a very similar thing that makes us open up. It makes us more receptive. That is what we're doing with a lot of this stuff, especially with what we're talking about today and tomorrow. This is all rooted in evolutionary psychology and neurobiology. And how authority works is the same way that the cleaner wasp works with the grouper. It triggers something that let the fish know, hey, this helped my great-great-grandfather survive. I'm going to do it too. But it's happening on an unconscious level. So really quickly, I want to talk about the difference between mastery here. And when we talk about actually mastering this, I'm going to give you everything you need to get to the point of mastery. We're not going to master authority in a couple of days, but I'm going to give you the data that if you took it over the course of a year, you would be fundamentally better than anyone you know. But by mastery, what I mean is the difference between a guy who watches Grey's Anatomy and thinks that he's a doctor and a paramedic, and the difference between a paramedic and a nurse, and the difference between a nurse and a surgeon. Only one of them really has mastery, true mastery over a topic. And I think that that's how a lot of this stuff comes forward through evolution. And the 2/3 rule is there because of that. And the 2/3 rule is just a scientific estimation that 2/3 of our communication with each other is nonverbal. If this distance here is how long we've been communicating as human beings, this is how old language is. Language is a brand new invention for us. It's brand new. We're born with nonverbal communication, and we learn how to talk and how to listen. We're born with nonverbals. But that's why we get gut feelings. You have a conversation with somebody and everything goes well. Their posture is great. Their tone is great. They've read that great article on LinkedIn about how to fake yourself into body language. Everything looks great, but something's off. We get to the end of the conversation and we think something's not right. Something doesn't really line up, and I'm not sure what it is. And that happens because we've been reading nonverbal communication to survive as a species when we're hunting, when we're talking in the tribe, or we're getting along, or we're trying to find a partner before language existed. Think about picking up a date before language. Just imagine that scenario, how that went. We hadn't invented language yet, and you need to go find someone to mate with. It was tough. So survival relied on interpreting and sending nonverbal communication for millions of years. So the reason we don't get an automatic read of nonverbals, the reason we get a gut feeling instead, is back to that mammalian brain. That part of the brain, since it cannot speak English, can't send us a text message. It can't send a message up and say, oh, the eyebrows moved this way, and then the lips did this, and then the shoulders did that. It doesn't know how to translate it. Remember, it's an emotional brain, so it gives us an emotion. It gives us a gut feeling. And that's where we take it. We say something doesn't add up. And that's where we talked about earlier the difference between tactics and skills. I'm going to be giving you both. I think they're equally important, but a tactic repeated becomes a skill. So if we look at that model, the FATE model, FATE, focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. I'm going to keep repeating that in hopes that you're sick of it, but you also remember it. We're competing for the first one, focus. In all of my intelligence training and all of my interrogation training, the number one phrase that I repeat the most is focus is currency. Focus is your number one source of influence, because without it, nothing else exists. And we talked about the spinal cord just a little bit. That spinal cord is capable of a lot of rapid decision making. And in neurology school, one thing that blew my mind is if you hold a newborn baby, and we've all probably done this, you hold a newborn baby over a coffee table or over the kitchen table or right down by the floor. It can't walk yet. It's still a newborn, but you see the baby's legs start kind of doing this little motion, and the parents say, oh, he's trying to walk. He knows what he's doing. He knows that that's a floor. No, that's not true. Babies born without a brain and only a spinal cord will do the same thing. So that is a section of your eye, which is part of our reptilian system, seeing the floor below us and then triggering a set of excitatory neurons connected to another excitatory neuron, which causes a pattern, a repetition inside the spinal cord. You can do that without a brain. Pretty interesting. So we have a lot of stuff that we think is conscious, but isn't really conscious. So the only two things you're ever working with in any persuasion scenario, in any human to human communication scenario, are electricity and chemicals. And that's it. If I'm triggering a genetic script from 2 million years ago, I'm triggering an electrical signal. Everything's electricity and chemicals. You will never persuade anyone to move anything besides those two things. That's it. When somebody says, oh, I really love beekeeping. I love mountain biking. I like jogging on the trail. That's technically not correct. Serotonin and dopamine are technically the only two things you have ever loved. And that includes your family. And we can throw oxytocin in there. So a lot of that stuff is chemical based and electrical based. So these 4 laws are in every training that I do because they're the most life-changing way to start seeing the world differently. So these are the 4 laws of human behavior according to Chase Hughes. And number 1, I think was invented by Buddhism, or first written about. The only universal law of human beings is suffering. And the better you get at reading people and understanding how to spot behaviors and profile people, the more you see sadness and suffering and shame. Those are the 3 most common emotions. And technically, in my belief, when I really get a profile of someone, a really accurate behavior profile are the techniques a person uses to hide their shame, to hide suffering from other people. It sucks. Law number 2, every human is wearing a mask. We all have something that we project to the outside world, a persona, an ego, an attitude, something that we want to be seen as by other people. We all want to be seen a certain way. When my kids are growing up, my kids are 13 and 14 now. They're growing up. There's a Subaru in front of us covered with bumper stickers. There's like 500 bumper stickers on it. I would ask them those questions like, what does that person want us to think about them? And that's the number 1 question in reading people. Number 1, what does that person want me to think about them? How do they want to be seen? And that explains so much. So my kids might look at those bumper stickers and say, I'm adventurous. I'm playful. I've done lots of things. I know a whole lot of people. I'm probably not a threat. I will be a good friend to you. That's what those stickers are saying. They're not saying Mount Rushmore. They're not saying I participated in the 2014 beach cleanup and picked up plastic bottles. That's not what they're saying. They're saying all those other things. So we start to see people differently. That's what we see all the time. So number 3, everybody pretends not to wear a mask. And that's not because we're trying to fake anything. That's because of the tribe part of the fate model. If we go around talking about how we're wearing a mask, we're not going to fit into the tribe very well. So none of us really discuss it. It's not something we're really aware of. It's also not something we just bring up in normal conversation. And number 4, every adult is a product of childhood punishment and reward. Or if you want to substitute the word punishment for suffering. So anytime we suffered, we had the E on the fate model, the emotion. We suffered, we learned a consequence, and we memorized it inside the little hippocampus. Don't ever do that again. And the reward part, I stood up for myself one time, I got my teeth knocked out. Meanwhile, another kid stands up for himself one time and everyone bows down and listens. And he grows up to be confident and then teaches classes on how to be confident, even though that childhood memory is what made him that way. So that dopamine that he got from doing that became addictive. There's a tiny part of our brain nobody ever talks about. It's like the size of a pea, but it's called the nucleus accumbens. And this little thing is dedicated to memorizing that felt really freaking good. I'm going to search for more of that in the future. I'm going to search for ways to make that happen again in the future. That felt good. Do it again. And finally, when I'm giving you all these lenses to start looking at the world differently, this is the one I would have you like put on your wallpaper or make your cell phone remind you every couple of hours, because this is dramatically life-changing. So I always use the same scenario to describe this because I think we can all identify with it. And if you imagine yourself driving on the freeway, it's 5 and there's not a lot of traffic. You're heading home for the day and some gigantic douchebag in a pickup truck that's all jacked up with like I'm cool stickers all over the back of it, cuts you off, then reaches out his window and flips you the bird. It flips you off. It would piss almost everybody off. We would all be like, what is this guy's problem? But there's 4 levels of people, and there's 4 ways that we can see other people. And they're on the screen here. We can see people as broken. And what do we do to broken things? We fix them. So if I view other people as broken and a guy cuts me off, then now the scenario has been broken. And what do I need to do? If the hierarchy, if he's just done this to the hierarchy, my first response is I need to fix it. I need to level this back up. But think about this. This is the way a lot of us look at our problems. If I'm down here, the solution is double my altitude. So it's opposite of where I am. So we tend to see not this as the solution. We tend to see the opposite of our problem as the solution. So the opposite would be 2 times above or 2 times upward. So the person that sees people as broken, they're pissed off, they're emotional, they're gripping the steering wheel, they're cursing to themselves. They might pull up beside them and flip them off back again just to let the person know I'm back in control now. Maybe take some pictures of them with their phone to make them paranoid. Maybe cut them back off, slam on the brakes. That's a level 1 person. Nothing wrong with it. The world's full of them. But let's go to level 2. This would be different. I view people as different. We see lots of people that are different than us, and we don't automatically feel the need to fix it. We just say, well, they're different than us. We'll still get emotional, still get pissed off in that scenario, and probably still secretly imagine that person T-boning into a phone pole or something down the road. But we're probably not going to try to fix the scenario or fix the person. We make no attempt to fix it. Level 3 would be facts. And this is the reason that none of us have ever been really upset or ever upset at all at a hurricane or a tornado or something that we knew was an unchangeable fact. Every drop of anger is a secret desire to change something. Every piece of anger is a desire to change something. But if we're looking at facts and we know that they can't be changed, our brain automatically does not go to anger. It's just a fact. Well, we have the level 2 person talking to his friend who's the level 3 person saying, I don't know why this guy's such a douchebag. We got the level 3 person going, oh, because he's a douchebag. That's what they're supposed to do. What do you expect them to do? That's their job. We have to have them. So that would be the level 3. And then we get to level 4. And this is reasons. So someone like me, I see the images that are here on the screen. Like this actually goes on in my head. I see that guy in the truck and I automatically envision who hurt you? That's the first question in my head. I wonder who it was that hurt you. And I'm seeing this little boy that got beat up in front of his friends or got bullied, endlessly bullied in school, and then somehow made a permanent unconscious decision, staring in the mirror one night, crying, made the decision to say, no one will ever make me feel subordinate to them again. I will always be on top and I will always act in a way where no one will hurt me. No one's going to hurt me again. We see the socially awkward woman or socially awkward person and just assume that they should be different. They should change. Instead of imagining, even if these scenarios in my head are completely false, completely imaginary, I'm no psychic, that I still think of them. And I still think of this person is a reason. Their behavior is a reason for something. And if you think about it, level 4 is the way that you view yourself. The last time you were a total piece of you know what to another person, you were like, oh, well, that's because, and you viewed yourself as a reason. So we automatically say, well, I was a total a-hole because of that, or because of this. I have all these bad habits because of that. So all we're doing is offering other people the same way we view ourselves without judgment. And if there is one thing that will kill every attempt that you will ever make at influence, it's judgment. And this is not just in an interrogation, this is anywhere. So we are all reasons, all of us, because level 1 is non-productive and inaccurate. Level 2 is probably accurate to a degree. Level 4 is semi-accurate in that the person probably still could change. Or sorry, when we see reasons, this one is the most accurate mechanism. So like they're a reason because of their ancestors. They're a reason because of their upbringing, not just their own life. If your ancestors raised cattle, you're more likely to get up throughout the night to check on them because of your ancestors having to get up throughout the night, because people would steal cattle. If your ancestors grew crops, it's really hard to steal a cornfield. So if you have ancestors that were farmers and not cattle raisers, that's why you could sleep through the night. There's tons of documented research on this stuff, that a lot of our lives are driven by what our ancestors did. If your ancestors lived in the woods, then you're more likely to develop farsightedness where you can't see a long distance. If you lived in open plains or on top of mountains, mountainous regions where you had to look a long way away, this is 500,000 years ago. Now you can see really far perfectly, but up close you need reading glasses. It's pretty interesting stuff, I think. So we are literally all reasons. So our brain is running on scripts. Your eyes evolved to be nearsighted or farsighted, even based on a script that your ancestors wrote. We evolve on scripts. The follow authority, do what other people are doing, but also don't touch the stove. When I'm going into a restaurant, I pay for the meal, I leave a good review, or I tip the waiter. Whatever I've been doing repeatedly becomes a script. The reason that you can drive your car without knowing it, like you pull into your driveway and you're like, holy shit, who was driving the car for the last 10 minutes? The reason that you can do that is because anything you repeat, your brain memorizes. So if I'm doing it all over again, like learning to tie shoes, all the repetitions, and those neurons that were this far apart, those neurons started just touching each other and creating a bridge. And that little neuron connection is a script. Some of our ancestors and some from our own lifetime. So like tying shoes is a lifetime script. Obeying authority is an ancestor script. So I know that if you're running on a script, I know probably what your next course of action is if I know what script you're running. But I also know how to break you from that script. So I can use language that makes you feel like you're in that scenario, or I can use language that yanks you out of it and that makes your brain say, whoa, this is not what I expected. This is something new. And those are very powerful levers, both of them. So right now, or especially if we were in a seminar room, but right now we've all been in business meetings on Zoom. Most of them are boring. Your brain's borrowing a little bit from that, leaning back in the chair a certain way that you did in the meeting earlier, sitting forward, maybe taking notes on the exact same notebook that you took your business notes in earlier today in the meeting. That's a script. If I'm in a seminar room and I'm in the front teaching a seminar, I'm in the front of a room. I'm kind of an authority figure in the room because it's my seminar. And you're sitting at a desk writing on a paper. Where do you think our brain's borrowing a script from? It's school, middle school, high school, college. So I know at that moment that if your brain is in the middle of borrowing something from school, that people in school are hyper responsive to authority. So what if I did something that made you start thinking about school, that made you feel like you were in school unconsciously? You automatically become more open to authority, more open to suggestion, more suggestible, more likely to connect with other people like when you were a kid, and more likely to take notes or more likely to listen to something because I'm triggering a script deliberately. So if I can do something that makes your brain say the following phrase, your brain goes, this is just like that. Whatever that is, I can bring up any emotion I want. I'm bringing up a neuron connection that we just talked about that I know that I can leverage. So we're going through a lot of models here, and I apologize. But I want to talk about this 6 axis of influence here. Any persuasion requires 3, at a minimum, 3 of these 6 things, all into any persuasion. Every commercial, every marketing thing that makes you buy it, every car salesman, every psychotherapist, every hostage negotiator, all the same. If you want to influence a person more than most people, all you need are 3 of these things to be leveled up. That's it. So you take 3 of these things. So in this one, we have focus, suggestibility, and compliance. So the level of compliance is leveled up. The level of suggestibility and focus, they're leveled up. So if I'm super focused on what's going on, I become very suggestible and very compliant. I will do whatever. But we take the other ones too. And if we delete those 3, if I'm completely open, I'm willing to just kind of discuss anything. I'm absolutely connected to the person I'm speaking to, and I have really good positive expectancy about what's to come in the future. I can be influenced. But the cool thing is that you can pick any 3. And with authority, you're going to leverage up all 6 of these. Authority naturally pushes all of these to the right. So authority pushes these to the right automatically, just kind of as a byproduct. So if we're just looking at obviously I put planes on here because my company's Behavior Pilot. This training is called Behavior Pilot. But if we're looking at these little airplanes, if they're all at the very bottom or they're all just kind of at random spots, authority kind of pushes all of them to the right. But most of all, it pushes the yellow line, suggestibility, to the right. So when we talked about the stick breaking, that thing generated so much attention that nothing else in life mattered. And the reason it generated attention is because it was new. The brain had an expectation. What do you think Amy had in her head of grabbing all the berries and going back to the village? That was a what? That was a script. So when something deviates from our brain's anticipated script, focus is immediately created. So we have an expectation, something else happens, focus is manufactured immediately. So that's novelty. Novelty manufactures focus, and authority manufactures suggestibility. And we're really going to get into authority, into the weeds tomorrow. So with this, we just need 3. And you just need 3 of these airplanes past this 50-yard line that I've made here. So in any scenario, if someone says, oh, I can't be, let's say I'm doing hypnosis on a person. I'm in a bar and somebody wants me to hypnotize them and it's like a fun party trick. The music's really loud. And then the person says, oh, I have ADD. I can't be hypnotized. Okay. So that removes a whole lot of focus, right? Yeah. So I have focus taken off. So there's not a whole lot else that's really taken out of here by the person being really distracted. I can still level up suggestibility, openness, compliance, connection, and the expectancy here and tell them what's going to come up in the future. And that is powerful influence. You only need 3 of these just at the halfway mark to influence a person. And if you can get all 6, you can literally do anything. You can go start a cult if you want. So I want you to view these things, and these all say the same 6 things. These are the same words on here. I want you to view these 6 pillars as the doorway, or maybe as the pins inside of the lock mechanism. So we have focus, openness, connection, suggestibility, compliance, and expectancy. In focus, the way that I define this is the amount of exclusion that a person will place on the outside environment. So we're in a conversation with each other. The level of focus I can generate with you will dictate how much exclusion you're ignoring the outside environment. So you're watching a fabulous movie that has all your attention. That's got focus. So you're ignoring people around you. You can't hear conversations anymore. That's what focus is. When we talk about openness, openness is the degree to which a person will share things they normally don't. Will they share things they normally don't? And connection is a feeling that a person has in, I guess, in their gut or wherever you want to call it. Being connected and liking and trusting you. That's just liking and trusting. So some people may call the connection rapport. When we have suggestibility, this is the degree to which a person will accept and then act on something suggested to them, accepting and acting on it. And compliance might seem like suggestibility, but compliance is the measure of latency. So if I suggest an idea, the time it takes for those words to come out of my mouth and for you to start acting or start immediately thinking about what I'm talking about. So like if I'm saying these words, if I start telling a story about a really hot day and I describe it very vividly, you're going to have that image in your head immediately because I have your focus right now. I've got everybody pretty open with jokes and stuff like that throughout. And I've connected with you by talking about how people are sitting and changing your sitting position to be more interested, like leaning forward. And I've started connecting. I've been a lot vulnerable with you. I've leveled up suggestibility in everyone here. And the compliance means that if I tell that story, you will imagine it instantaneously. Now, I want you to imagine the difference between me telling the story and then somebody who's in the Zoom right now who you don't know jumping in and starting to tell that story. You're going to kind of be pushed back at first. So there's going to be latency. There's going to be time. That person has to buy you in, get you bought into their story before you start saying, okay, I'll start imagining that. So hopefully that makes sense. The amount of time, low amount of time it takes to get someone to act. All right, next is expectancy. And this is our communication and our ability to make someone visualize what's going to happen in the future. That's it. Is my communication good enough to get you to imagine what's going to happen in the future? And now the moment I can get you to imagine that, you're going to start trying to manufacture that. Because we try to manufacture our expectations. The number one cause of depression is unmet expectations. So we have an expectation about something and it's not met. So everyone says we're in the business of persuasion. I want to learn how to persuade people. But I'm willing to wager that you will agree by the end of this that persuasion is not the answer. We are not in the business of persuasion. You're in the business of giving permission to people. If there is authority present, what you are offering someone is not persuasion. You're offering them permission to behave in a way they normally wouldn't. If I describe a new Mexican restaurant that I really like and I do it well enough, I'm going to convince you to go. I'm going to make you have permission to do something you normally would not. You normally would not make the choice to do. So permission is more important than persuasion. And we're going to talk about confidence later, and how confidence begins. The first step to having confidence is having permission to do it. And I can promise you, no one's coming to save you. No one's going to tap on your shoulder and give you a permission slip to feel confident. No one's coming to help, and most people don't care. So you have your permission slip. I'll mail you one if you need one. I'll send one to your house.